Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Esri broadcast for our webinar on emergency call taking and dispatch. For those of you in other parts of the world outside the U.S., it may be evening. Thank you for joining us. It looks like we have people registered from all over the world. My name is Mike King, and I manage the call taking industry for Esri. I have on this call with me today Britton Bromley, who Britt is our partner manager, so he works with all of our CAD companies and other leading companies in the public safety space in moving technology forward for you, the end users. I also want to thank in advance Brenda Martinez, who is managing this webinar from behind the curtain. And Brenda may, if we miss something or if there's something that we have not done that needs to be done, may slip in and give some instruction as we move along. So thanks to Brenda. A reminder for those on the call, this call is being recorded and will be on the public safety webinar page. We would encourage you, you'll receive a follow-up email with answers to questions that could not be filled in during the webinar today. And we would encourage you to please share those with your peers so that this information might be shared throughout the world. If you have questions, there are a couple of options available to you. There is a chat window where you can enter those chat questions. Britt Bromley will try to fill those as we go along. Those that seem to be more global in nature or covering a larger audience, he may repeat the question and the answer as we near the end of the presentation. And then you can also reserve your comments at the end, and we'll invite our speaker to present those at the end of the webinar as well. Our agenda today is pretty simple. We've invited Joe Keyson from the city of Chicago to share some of his thoughts regarding the recent Chicago Marathon and how he's using GIS. Joe, if we could bring up the next slide with the agenda. And while Joe's doing that, at the conclusion of Joe's comments today, we will then try to give you, in whatever minutes are remaining, a little bit of an update on what Esri is doing to support the emergency call-taking industry, and of course any concluding questions with some reminders of upcoming events beyond that. I'd like to introduce now the presenter for today. Joe Keyson is going to speak to us about the Chicago Marathon. I had the opportunity of sitting through the marathon with Joe. In fact, I think Joe and I were the first to cross the finish line. At about 4 a.m. we crossed the finish line before the marathon started. Joe is a 30-year GIS veteran and is a GIS manager for the city of Chicago. He has revolutionized the way GIS is used in the public safety environment there. He is a longtime friend of Esri and a longtime personal friend. And Joe, we really appreciate you taking time today from your busy schedule and look forward to what you have to share. At the conclusion of Joe's remarks, we'll, as the agenda stated, move into a little bit of an overview of where Esri is today. So with that, let's turn the time over to Joe Keyson. And again, Joe, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mike, for inviting me to talk today, and Esri as well. So here in Chicago, we've been using GIS for quite some time. We became an Esri user back in 1995 when our dispatch system went live back then. This is just a screenshot of our portal homepage, which is internal. So a little bit more about OEMC, as we like to call it for short, Office of Emergency Management and Communications. Our public safety group is split up into police, fire, EMS, and 911. The IT is driven out of police, but is shared across the board for all the organizations. A little bit about Chicago. We have approximately 2.8 million people. We cover 233 square miles. O'Hare is our largest airport. We have a secondary airport called Midway, which is in the top 10 for daily traffic as well. You can see we have quite a volume of calls every day to 911. Approximately 50% of those calls actually get dispatched. We have a very large fleet of vehicles as well for police and fire. It's pretty self-explanatory. Our police is built upon 3 geographic areas, which is then broken down into 22 districts, and there's 278 total beats. Our fire operations consist of 5 deputy chief areas and then split down into these 25 battalion chief zones. So a little bit about how we're using Esri technology. We have a full stack of technology here. The backbone is our GIS server. We have a few desktop installations, but not many, because we've really leveraged the web, whether it's through Web App Builder or custom Java script apps that we've built. We have a very good organization here. We see our usage from the cop that's been on the beat for a week to those that have been a week before retiring. So we manage all our demographics to see if we've missed a census population here within CPD, but it seems that we're hitting everything. So as Mike mentioned, we've been using Operations Dashboard for 3 years here to manage events. The big event every year is the Chicago Marathon. We have over 40,000 runners in that event, and it goes through, I believe, 27 neighborhoods in the city. So it's a variety of things that are in the environment that we have to take into consideration. So we're using GeoEvent on the back end to process our 911 data and our GPS. The data is being pushed to us from our CAD, so we don't have direct access for various reasons. The fear is always that if we're down, we don't want to cause any slowness on that end. We also use GeoEvent to generate emails, whether it's for a priority 1 call that falls inside of the event footprint. So we're using geofencing along with this process. But we also have notifications that are being sent from our forward command post, which they have the ability to either choose to email or not email the notification, but it does go into the database as a spatial object and does appear on the dashboard as well. So we do have quite a bit of things going on. We've quickly developed some editing interfaces for our not-so-friendly GIS users within the department so that they can update base information. We don't expect our police officer or firefighter to be able to understand the full-blown GIS package. So a quick web app builder interface has seemed to ease their use of the technology. And we also use web app builder to push out some additional maps that have some added widgets from the web app builder itself. This is an example of the email notifications that get processed. Pretty straightforward. Whatever the person put in from the event notification screen, and a location, and the time and date that it was created. Our GeoEvent process for our calls for service, again, anything inside the footprint of the event, you'll get the call type, location of the call, who was dispatched at what time, and what the event number is. This information is all available additionally within inside the map frame as well. So we'll jump over to our portal homepage. And as I said, we have various events. So you can see here we have Buck Billiken, Chicago Marathon, Lollapalooza, NFL Draft, and many more. We have hundreds of festivals and events. Not all of them have we put together a dashboard interface, but we're looking to make some modifications over the course of the year to allow more of the end users that manage these events to actually set up the environment as well. So we're just going to jump right into the ops dashboard, and we have a series of information here. It can be overwhelming if everything's on. I just have a subset of information being displayed right here. So right off the bat, there's the summary information. You can see we have actually 6 active calls that have been dispatched to units within the footprint of the marathon. And citywide, there's 174 dispatch calls that are presently open. And this is information that's being displayed over the last hour. Some of these calls may linger on based on the cases. They're right in the case report, so we don't necessarily want to display everything. This tab here gives you the details of the calls, and also you can see these event notifications that have been that I've put in this morning. Shortly here, I've just, through the Geo Form, I've added a event notification. It should pop up shortly. Again, I'll refresh on the screen. Right here is the event notification that I just put in. Here at mile 13, you can see unattended bag. So this kind of information during the event goes in. It starts off, a major notification goes out that the command tent is stood up. And then when the event actually starts, the wheelchairs go off. These notifications go on and on and on, so that, as we know, the course is being populated with runners. Also, right now, we don't. We're looking to get some information from the event that also gives us an approximate population along the course route itself. Right now, I have a little script that goes out and is just updating this for the webinar. You can see this blue line here. It just turned red. The ring was now blue. It indicates approximate runners on the course. And again, we are looking to incorporate this information. Northwestern Hospital has a little interface that they are maintaining this information, and we look to incorporate it. And I must mention Bank of America organizes the event, and they have been very generous this year to provide a lot of their base information that they've used inside of their web map, so that we could incorporate it within our information as well. Somebody may ask at some point, we are just displaying police calls currently, as we've, continue to ingest data from our 911 system. We didn't want to. We started off easy because really it was more police orientated, but now we're becoming more fire EMS. So during the next event in October of 2017, we hope to have our fire call data in as well. We do have the fire department putting in staging locations and other information that they're interested in as well. Sorry about that. And again, it's just to give you an idea of quick, easy ways for these people to migrate around, whether we're looking at a mile post or in kilometers where this information is. Again, timing maps. additional information about aid shelters, location. Here we have the contact information of these individuals in case there was to be a deviation from the course for a weather-related issue. We have that information. We have our underground shelters available as well, and the course marshals would be able to assist in getting the runners off the course into a safe shelter if the weather were to change. Mentioning weather, because we've deployed this web-based, so any of our locations can access this, because a lot of our infrastructure is locked down for deployment of desktop app version of Operations Dashboard. We've deployed it through the web. We're fortunate this year the weather was cooperative. We were looking forward to, if the weather was bad, that we would have some desktop installations of the Ops Dashboard hooked into the AccuWeather widget, so we could use that as a way to gauge the time that the weather front was moving in, approximately how long that event was going to last. We're looking forward to hopefully that widget being deployed to the web version of Operations Dashboard, and we're also very excited about the Ops Dashboard moving to JavaScript as well. Again, just some more of these layers of information. Again, we've allowed a lot of this pre-planning to take place outside of using a desktop GIS so that we can get through this information. This is the simple web app builder interface. Again, we have some of the layers turned on here where the designated units can put in their information. So all 450 posts that are on this map were inputted by somebody from the incident plan itself. Then it was additional teams, our organized crime, which oversees our narcotics and gang teams. They were staging local route as well. We had K9 units so that we allowed them to put their stuff in. Our JAD teams, again, we can go on and on and on. But this interface is easy enough for them to use. Just click on one of the objects, drop it in, select from the drop-down what event it is. So additionally on the back end, all our data entry is controlled by a domain back at the database level, so that we don't have to worry about somebody mistyping marathon, or I'm calling it Chicago Marathon and everybody else is calling it marathon. We've built a lot of domains to control the data inputs, to make it a little more easier to use and avoid any mistakes on the back end. I also mentioned how we generated another web app product. From here, our individuals at Emergency Management have utilized this tool for various other events. They like the fact that we can bring in the ERG widgets and the situational awareness widgets and quickly do some analysis online that may affect the event as it's occurring. You know, there was a fire somewhere off the route, and it turns out we had a hazardous material spill at that location. Based on the wind direction, should we be concerned about notification of the forward command, and then have the Bank of America make a decision whether or not that the route would need to be altered in one way or the other. A couple years ago, we did have, during the event, someone who was going to jump off one of the bridges which happened to be on the route, and the route had to be regenerated on the fly within 5 minutes of the initial runners getting to that location. So again, the paper maps are out the window at that point, which is one of the the big things I've been a proponent of, and we've slowly moved out of the, hundreds of maps being printed out the week of the event, and lo and behold, you have an incident like this which throws out the plan, and also we can then move our post efficiently, notification based on the information on the back end of those posts back out to the field. And if I just continue to go on and on, I mean, again, we have all this information here. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was we also tie back into some of our infrastructure here at CPD. So we have this information that goes in about locations. It's our Facility Information Management System, acronym FIMS. So I've just turned on the FIMS. We have approximately 8,000 FIMS location within our database. So if I select a few of these here, I wanted to kind of show you. Basically, we have a one-time login, and then you click on the link. This is going in. This retrieves the details for this location. It could be, there's floor plans inside this information. It's all accessible. Contact information. For the individuals, excuse me, and the location itself. So again, a lot of information here being ingested. Again, turn this off. I mentioned we have, we also have CAD drawings for the event itself that have been provided by a partner for Bank of America. We turn that information on. That one just come up. So our organized crime, again, they're populating information along this route. Sorry for the delay. Needs to be running a little slow. There's the population density for that simulated route. And here's where I was trying to get to, sorry for that. But this is the organized crime teams. It gave the units assigned and the commanding officer that's assigned to this portion of the route. They tend to break up the marathon from milepost to milepost and display different units along those routes as well. And again, we just have a quick legend available as well.
And Joe, while that's running, I believe Britt has a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Yeah, Joe, I think they relate to the dashboard here. So one of the questions was, can you generate a plume from this dashboard?
Currently, we do not have the the ERG widget configured within the apps dashboard, but that's where we go onto the ERG widget inside this web app builder product. We're looking at actually integrating the ability to have our fire department who has the ability to generate a highly accurate Plume model that we would be able to consume it inside a web service and then publish that out. And then we'd be able to ingest that into the operations dashboard from there.
Okay, great, thanks. And yeah, that's perfect. One additional question, I'll let you continue, is can you talk a little bit about the whatever QA, QC process you have for the data entry from the data you receive from your end users?
Yes, so before we publish any of it, we take a look at the information that they provided to make sure that all the fields are relevant. We do get some last-minute spreadsheets that we can then upload into the database for individuals that are assigned to these posts. So we have a sergeant and a contact phone number, that information. On the QC, also we want to make sure that there's no null data or any symbols that may cause issues. So we have some scripts that we go through and highlight errors within the data entry itself before this gets published out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hopefully that answers that question.
Thanks.
Okay. And again, so this again gives you a breakdown again, just who's assigned calls, what the call types are within. Again, this is just showing the subset within that the marathon boundary itself. This kind of gives you an idea of the call volume by our police districts current. And we can get that information from this dashboard. It's not just limited to what's inside the event itself and those calls. We're looking to change a little bit about how this all, the working feel of everything, so that we can, you click on one of these, it automatically turns on the layer itself, and this way it's on and off. Kind of going through this pretty quickly. So if anybody else has any other questions about the information we're putting in, if they want to, I don't know if anybody else sent any other information into you.
No, not right at this point. We've been doing a couple questions, but right now nothing more thrown your way at this point.
Okay. I mean, as you can quite see, start turning this off, so you can actually see the extent of the racecourse itself. A lot of vehicles. Like I said, we have a ton of fire and police vehicles on. So this is the area of the route that you can see it does venture through quite a bit of the city itself. We cross, I believe it's 3 bridges that cross the river, so this event does impede water traffic during the event itself, which usually is not a problem on the day of the race itself. But it also leads to our construction issues throughout the event as well. Notification is given to the companies that are doing construction that during this week, no additional construction will be allowed. A lot of road resurfacing is done previous to the event, so any issues with weather may cause the company or the city itself to work overnight to get the patching done. So the event goes on whether or not we're ready sometimes, but again, they have these moratoriums that are in place. Some of our teams go out and they do sweeps beforehand. We're looking at giving them a collector app if they find information that they want to track down the road. Mailboxes, garbage cans, other movable structures are removed from the event leading up to it, so that information would be duly noted that there was a object at this location. So if somebody comes back pre-race, that last-minute sweep the morning of, they come across an object and it shouldn't be there, they will remove it and they could put a notification in as well. That's one of the things, again, with the collector app, we can ingest this information in real time, display it back. We did use the collector app several years ago during our NATO G8 summit, where we had undercover agents in the field that were submitting their locations back and also submitting data back. So that was useful. Well, we did find out that, unfortunately, that some of our phones, it was a very huge drain on the battery, recording both location and collecting data. So great.
Yeah, Joe, if you have some time, I have a few more questions. I think this might be a good time to ask them if you're ready.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. So first one is, how long did it take to implement this system, this dashboard that you're sharing with the audience today?
It was relatively quick. The hardest thing was really setting up the feature classes in SDE and taking the time and picking them out and organizing that. Once that was done, really to cobble together the web map and then push out the ops dashboard, it was a matter of an hour or so. That's the beauty of this. We're hopefully planning for a little celebration in a week or so with the Cubs, so we will have something for that event as well. Planning has begun on the event yesterday for the footprint itself, for street closures and posts being set up, so that information is being input into the system as we speak. We are also currently monitoring several of the entertainment districts during the games. Our OEMC team has been very integral in asking for information to be presented to them, whether it's calls for service, liquor establishments within these locations, so they can monitor activity as well. One of the things we do look for is to also integrate some of our 311 data, which is non-emergency related. So in an event that may turn into a non-emergency thing, but if it's weather related, we can actually see if there's a flood of information coming in about trees down or things like that that could also impact what we're doing here. I should mention, because I almost forgot, Mike, we did incorporate social media during the event. We were lucky enough that Snap Trends allowed us to use their information and publish it into the dashboard as well, as a demo for people here at CPD, CFD, and OEMC to see the social media integration from that product. It was a very huge thing. And one thing that also the big interest is always is where's the lead car and the follow car. So using the capabilities within the ops dashboard to follow those vehicles along as well, without having to be in constant communication via the radio or the PDT to get information back about their location. There are some other questions, Britt?
Yeah, I do. Kind of related to the one you've been addressing here, and I guess you referred to the term "we." Can you give us a sense of the size of the staff, the GIS team, or the group that are working with your GIS system and working on the ops dashboard? Is it you alone, or is it give a little sense on how many people are working on this and maintaining it?
Sure. The GIS staff for the public safety group consists of two. We kind of split up the duties based on our day-to-day activities. The dashboard integration, the web app builder products, the portal, setting up database views and all that. I manage all that. The individual, Scott Hamilton, who works with me, he pretty much manages the other end of the SDE, making sure our data is up to date. He creates a lot of the database views. I create most of the scripts that keep our data up to date. And Scott is heavily involved in building customized JavaScript applications for more of the heavy lifting day-to-day crime analysis type events that we deal with here. We have a system we call Caboodle that he built on top of the ArcGIS server platform, and it's the kit and caboodle. That's how the moniker was thrown out, and it stuck. So we have over 3,000 users that access that data over the course of the mobile product that he built as well for the vehicles, so they can look up information within the area. It's very heavy gang-related information for the field. Our sergeants use that tool to monitor where their vehicles are as well. So there's a whole GPS integration in those products, not only from where we are right now, but also from a historical perspective. You can go back and look in time where the vehicles were, and also it ties back into the calls for service to see when they were dispatched, when they closed the call, etc.
That's great. Kind of to dovetail to one of the comments you just made there. What is the audience for this this dashboard? I mean, how many different users, and obviously is it a dispatch center? Is it commanders? Can you talk a little about how many people have access to this dashboard, and for the example, the marathon, for example?
So for the marathon, it was open to anybody that had access to a department intranet computer. So it also that meant that the individuals at our 911 center, at our EOC, they had access to it. The Ford Command, we also down at the Ford Command, there's the police and fire have their command van set up. They were tapped into the system, and actually we extended access to the FBI, who were on scene as well. So I would say during the course of the event, there was probably 50, 60 people throughout the city hitting this dashboard during the event itself.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll ask you one more question. I'll let you continue here. We have other questions, but we can get them as we move through the webinar. And if there's some that we don't address, we'll certainly follow up after the webinar. But I do have a question. You talked about AccuWeather, bringing other different feeds. Have you integrate any camera or live video image or camera images through this dashboard?
So that's one of the sticking points we have. We are looking at trying to get our cameras, the video integrated. And we are going to have something, but it will be outside of the ops dashboard. It's going to be a client-based application, but we're going to pursue still the ability to get a widget built that can tie back into the camera system so we can bring up those live feeds. Currently, it's not accessible through the app itself.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll stop some questions right now, and we can circle around on that, but let you continue with your presentation. Thank you.
Sure. In addition, we stood up an operations dashboard the week of the public schools kicking off. Our people over at OEMC wanted to monitor calls for service within 1 block of our safe passage routes. So we have these routes throughout the city for our public schools so students can get to school safely. They wanted to be able to, monitor this information, and the operations dashboard was a great place to view this, and they still use it today. I thought it would trickle off 2 weeks after school started, but they are still monitoring activity within those safe passage routes. Kind of gives them an aggregate by route, how many calls there currently are inside those zones. And I know somebody's probably going to ask at some point, we are going to also look at using the footprint to indicate when a CPD vehicle or a CFD vehicle enters the footprint and exits the footprint, notification-based wise. We want to use that information also. We have some additional overtime initiatives in the city that are Polygon-based that we are tracking information for, and we'll be ingesting into an ops dashboard for management to look at and review. So some of the information won't be available to everybody, but some of the information will be just for the exempt members of the police department. And as I said, I really haven't brushed on Chicago Fire Department's integration of the data. We're looking for 2017 to do a lot of work for them in regards to ops dashboards, to integrate a lot of the data that they're collecting and moving into some new systems so that we can ingest easy. And our 911 folks, they have a lot of wealth of information. Also, we would like to get, hopefully we'll be changing a lot of this information around to get some more information about the status of the vehicles as time goes on. Mike, I don't know, do you have any questions or comments?
No, this is great. Thank you, Britt. Do we have any additional questions? Otherwise, Joe, if you don't have anything else you're showing, we can move into a couple of concluding thoughts.
Yeah, I do have a couple questions, and then we can hand it off to Mike if that's okay.
Certainly.
So there's a couple of questions on the same topic, and it was really around your CAD system. I guess it's a twofold question. One is, do you have only one CAD system that you're utilizing for the dashboard in the city? And then maybe related, and I don't want to say more importantly, but do you have the ability to draw information directly from your CAD into your operation dashboard?
We have one CAD citywide system. And we do have the ability to ingest that information from it. Again, the call data, the GPS data is actually coming from the CAD system via a push from the system. We're looking to get additional tables from CAD, some of the details about the calls and information like that, pushed it along into a table so we can tie it in as well.
Thanks. Mike, I'll let you run with it now.
Mike, we're not hearing you. Is your microphone on mute by chance?
Well, the information I shared was stunning, and thanks, Brenda. Thanks a lot, Joe. We really appreciate your time today. There were some really important things that came out as a course of this presentation today. Chicago was really impressive in the way they put things together. We saw examples of ArcGIS desktop. We saw server being used on premise and also through ArcGIS Online, a great use of platform and enterprise computing there. We were able to see web applications in action. One of the things that we found really interesting to Esri that Chicago did in the marathon this year was they actually used some of our Geo Forms, which again, the templates and forms are free for ArcGIS license holders, and they use Geo Forms to actually consume CAD calls. Again, you're looking at thousands and thousands of CAD calls that were being consumed within Geo Forms and then republished to area commanders for information that was significant to them. A great show of technology that we, Joe, hope to replicate. That was really neat. We also saw some good examples of consuming sensor data, social media, weather, live traffic feeds, and others. As we move toward next generation 911, we're going to see this become a really important part of what the emergency call taking process of tomorrow looks like. And then one of the most important things as we move from mobile command unit to mobile command unit throughout the theater of Chicago's marathon, we saw the information that Joe was creating and sharing being used by partners in the FBI and Homeland Security and others seamlessly, and that also was very impressive. I thought you might be interested in a couple of quick photos that I took while we stood in the command center. The command center was stood up in a tent with hundreds of people inside, each with different roles. In the center of this picture is actually the police portion, and this was the dashboard that they were operating from. GIS had a prominent role in that dashboard. You'll notice top center right, dashboard showing social media feeds and live calls for service coming in. In the center left, we can see another map that included the race route and monitored not only the runners but the lead cars and kept track of what was happening there along with those social media feeds that were coming in. There were also interesting challenges. How do we get newer officers and younger officers to participate in a way that makes sense? So while we had technology there, we still had a backup of paper maps, and it's not something to be frustrated with, it's something to embrace, but it was interesting in conversation with those who were relying on the map that it was more a challenge of am I ready for technology and helping get water to the end of the row as Joe pushes forward the agenda of how easy these applications are to be used in any kind of format, including printed. We see a broader adoption across the board. We're facing some interesting challenges, especially in the 911 world, as we move from this idea of hierarchical GIS thinking and collaboration to having stovepipe data to more of a shared geographic approach to information management, what we see is these systems becoming systems of systems. And so what we see in Chicago is this networked approach that is envisioned on the right of this slide, and really is the best practice of how we're seeing things happen. So again, congratulations, Joe. Here we see systems of record, the information being stored and managed and kept. We see a system of engagement where collaborators throughout the theater, not only those in a dispatch center intaking calls, but those in the command center receiving and managing those calls and collaborating those calls with real-time sensor data that's coming in from social and traffic and others, and then federating that data and sending it out so the field commanders on any kind of mobile device could go out and access that. Just great examples. And all of that is done through a process of portal computing. And I just wanted to share with you how we are moving that forward. So on the screen you should see a dashboard. This is again one of the free templates that are available from Esri, but it is a live shot of CAD calls coming in to the city of Ogden, Utah, a smaller city, about 100,000 population, but they were having some difficulty visualizing some data in the field for field commanders, and so they simply took a feed of that CAD data, and we're seeing every 5 seconds live updates of not only the calls for service that are coming in, but we can see the police cars symbolized in blue, fire engines in red, and other calls for service and where they are occurring. These are configurable dashboards, just as Joe showed us, and as part of the industry platform configuration that we're building at Esri, these will be tools that will be available for any ArcGIS license holder to download and use and point their data toward. One of my favorites is just the ability, someone brought up the question about integrating camera systems into these dashboards. It's not a matter of whether it can be done. In Joe's case, it made good sense for them to rely on a different system for cameras than on their dashboard, but here's an example of different camera locations in that particular city that we're looking at and getting live feeds off of each of those as it relates to the map. Another nice example here is just showing the speed of all of the first responders so that supervisors can kind of have a feel for what people are doing. These applications are intended to be used, and if they don't work, throw them away and reconfigure or tweak them and adjust. Within the IPC, we're developing the ability for you to have tools for administrators, for GIS managers, for folks in operations, and even tools to share information out into the public. And we would recommend as a best practice that these are ways that you can begin to push out some of your information. Another simple tool that was just pretty exciting to us was a template that we call Local Perspective that this particular city used so that any officer at any time can select a location on the map and see all of the units that happen to be in and around that individual. These local perspective or web applications can be filled with information that is important to your organization. So for instance here, they're showing live calls for service that are coming in on the map. They're showing the location of previous Part 1 crimes over, I think this is a previous 3-day period. They're showing the location of parolees and probationers, and I believe active arrest warrants. Again, these can be configured in any way that you determine is necessary for your organization. In conclusion, I just want to mention that Esri has training that's available, and there is collateral and also support. So if you are a license holder, We encourage you to reach out to your local sales rep or reach out to any of us on the emergency call taking team, and we'll get you the help to accomplish things. In addition, you can also reach out to any of us or Joe personally, and Joe's been kind enough to allow us to show you his email address. If it's an Esri question, please push that to us and free Joe up from helping you build a web app. But otherwise, he would be happy to discuss with any of you anything that they've done in the past. Before I turn the time over to Brett for a moment for any concluding questions that may have come in, I want to just, again, thank you for attending and indicate that we have a series of symposiums for public safety that are coming up in the next few weeks. The dates are on the screen. Most importantly, the next symposium is November 2nd in the Sacramento area. And we then move to Denver in mid-November and Philadelphia in December. And then, as we did this year, we'll continue to provide a quarterly webinar in 2017, and would appreciate any feedback that you may have, and include any critiques that you may have on how we can make these more valuable to you. We, again, appreciate your attendance. In closing, Brett, do we have any questions in the final couple of minutes that we can ask or answer?
Yeah, maybe. So there's a couple of questions that came through, more of a technical nature, and they were really about the widgets and configuration of the widget, and did the city develop their own customized widgets? And so we'll do our best to follow up on some of those questions. But Joe, maybe it's not the right time, but I don't know if you can talk a little bit about how much scripting is that was done to either configure the widgets. Can you talk a little bit more, or revisit that, or at just a high level?
Sure. I mean, most of the widgets we use right out of the box. Very little scripting. Most of the scripting was on the back end to get the data into a usable format, whether it was coming through Geo events or directly into our SDE. So we pretty much have used out of the box for a lot of this stuff. On the web app builder, a little bit of scripting, but again, the tools are there. They work well, quickly able to deploy things for individuals when they come up with requests or emergencies and they're looking for something quickly for whether it's a meeting or actually to monitor an event. We've been pretty successful using the tool set that Esri has provided.
Great, thanks, Joe.
And Brett, with that, the link that Brenda sent everyone a little bit earlier is a link to the resources page where you can see all of those widgets, and you can see the different platforms that they'll work on.
No, Mike, I think there's a couple other questions, but I think we can address them offline. So I think on the question side, we're good.
Great. Thanks again to Joe Keyson from the city of Chicago, and best wishes with the Cubs, Joe. It's been a long time for you guys. And to everyone who has joined today, thank you so much. We'll give you a minute back in your day.
Thanks again, Mike.